the Author to Author podcast series with award-winning author Pamela R Haynes.
Welcome to the podcast.
Dalgety herbal teas produce 100% natural high-quality organic teas using only the best ingredients. Available now from all major supermarkets, or please visit our website at dalgety.co. Dalgety Herbal Teas.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening and good night. I am Pamela R Haynes, award-winning author of Loving the Brothers. This is the last episode for season 2 of the podcast. I wanted to take this opportunity to thank Dalgety Herbal Teas for their unwavering support and for creating the discount code A2AS2 for my lovely listeners to get 10% off their next Dalgety tea order. A vote of thanks to Island Empress for sponsoring episode 7 of the podcast. For more information about their products, visit www.islandempress.store. Thank you to my producer, Nigel Beckles, for turning my babble into a podcast interview. Special thanks to the station managers at Pam Tango Radio, East London Radio, and UK246.com. Congratulations to my competition winners. Your books and teas will be going out in the post shortly. Thank you to my amazing guest authors, Juliet Coley, Brenda Roach, Tanya Coley and her mother Audrey McFarlane, Francesca Blechner, Sabrina, Sheena Gordine, Elizabeth Hamilton, Cherise Johnson-Moore, Resna Kutan and Daniella Blechner. Welcome to episode 10, the last interview in this current series. In this episode, I interview the phenomenal Ms. Daniella Blechner about her life, her books and her publishing company, Conscious Dreams Publishing. See you on the other side. Hiya, Daniella. Thank you for joining me on the Author to Author podcast. It's great to finally interview you. We've been trying to do this practically the latter part of 2021, but I've got you in the room now, so that's fantastic.
Yay! Everything in its time. I'm happy to be here. Thank you, Pamela.
Yeah, I agree. Nothing happens 1 minute before it's supposed to. The first question I have for you is, where are your family from and where are you based now?
Where's my family from? So my mum is from Jamaica originally. She came here when she was 4 years old. So London-based, West London. Her family's in Nottingham. So she's the only Patterson, the only family member here in London. My dad, who passed away in October 2020, he was born in the UK. His dad came here as a refugee from Germany. They were originally Polish Jews. And then obviously to escape the Holocaust, came over here to London.
And whereabouts in London are you based?
I'm based in South East London, but I grew up in West London, but I've been in South East London for about 22 years now.
So you know it quite well, you know the area quite well. Can you tell us what it was like growing up in the 1970s, 1980s? What was that like for you?
So I was born in 1979. I treasure and find the 1980s so much more of a innocent time. Obviously, we didn't have internet. We didn't have mobile phones. In fact, I was one of the first people to have a mobile phone in the 90s. I think my boyfriend at the time bought me one. I was 16. I had this massive big brick. But, we used to play out. It was, my mum was very strict anyway. So to be fair, I didn't really play out that much. But when we talk about playing out, we played out properly, innocent games, knock down ginger. Wouldn't recommend that for now. The TV and cartoons were very simplified, weren't they? He-Man, trying to remember Thundercats, things like that. I think it was a lot more innocent times in terms of technology. The pressures were different. We didn't have the pressures of, social media and acceptance and validation and all of these sorts of things. I think there's pros and cons to both, but I genuinely enjoyed my growing up in the 80s.
That's wonderful. And where does your love for books stem from?
My love for books. I remember my mum took me to the library for the first time, and most kids, they love, parties, or they love going to, sweet shops. For me, I was like, oh my gosh, this place is amazing. I didn't want to leave because you're just surrounded by books that you could escape into, books that you could learn things from. So I was a real seeker of knowledge. So I'd be in the sort of knowledge and history section trying to learn as much as I can. I used to love birds and nature. I used to just obsess over finding out as much, getting all the books out and finding out as much as I can, trying to impress people who didn't really care about how many eggs robins laid and things like that. But I mean, I loved it, and I loved it. Like I said, the fantasy and magical books where you can escape into magical lands. So yeah, I can thank my mum for that.
And do you have a favourite book from your childhood that you remember reading?
I don't know if I had a favourite book. There were books that I enjoyed for different moments in my life, maybe. I did like Enid Blyton books. I did. But I did find it very disheartening that I could never find someone that looked like me in those books. I really identified with George, the tomboy in The Famous Five and Secret Seven. I liked the innocence of it all. I liked that she wasn't this damsel in distress, and she was very hardy and tough and, a bit of a tomboy. And I could relate to that as a kid. And so I really enjoyed reading the stories and feeling like I was there with them on the secret adventures. But, the only thing I wish was that in those days and times, there was a lot more diversity and representation where I could see myself. And I think it would have had a big difference in terms of self-esteem growing up.
Yes, I mean, I liked Anne of Green Gables, Little House on the Prairie. And, although Black people made an appearance in Little House on the Prairie, they were very much post-slavery times and not really in positions of, power or owners of businesses or teachers or anything like that. So those characters were very hard to relate to. So I agree with you that representation in our formative years really goes to shaping who we are as adults as well.
100%. And I think sometimes it's very subconscious as well. It's the absence of the image. And sometimes we don't even realise it. We're conditioned to believe that we're not visible or important because we're not in the picture. So we may not even recognise at the time that we're not there. It's a very subliminal, subconscious thing, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. But Danny, you moved into teaching. Why was that?
I have no idea. Speak to any of my teachers now or anyone who went to school with me, they would never, in fact, I'd run into them and they cannot believe that I'm a teacher. I wasn't naughty, I was cheeky. I was intelligent, but if I didn't like something, I never handed my homework in on time. I never had the right uniform. I was always talking, and you could see this in all of my reports. But if I enjoyed something, I was on it. But homework, you'd never get homework from me. But I got into teaching because at 20, I was a little lost, to be honest. Lots of my friends had gone to college at this point, had moved on with their lives. At this point, I was living with my dad. I was working as a receptionist at a leisure centre. Just needed guidance, didn't know what I was doing, where I was going, didn't quite make college. And so I just decided I need to do something completely different. I need to get away. So I found out about a company whereby you could go, abroad and do voluntary teaching. And I chose Tanzania. Never heard of it before. I thought, right, I'm going there. I'm doing it. Got the money. Went there for a year and I absolutely adored it. And it was teaching young people, sometimes 30, 60 kids at a time between 15 and 21. So there's no real age, it's not the same over there. Teaching English, but also I set up debating societies. And I just found that I loved working with young people. I found that I really found it rewarding, the challenges and the rewards. And it was something that I was good at and I hadn't thought it was something that I'd be good at before. And then I was working in TV and trying to work in TV and film at the time. So my point, what I wanted to do was to go back and work in TV and film, and I did, which is very difficult. It's another story. And eventually I started to work as a TA in schools in inner London, working with young children with behaviour issues in the SEN department. I found myself taking a lot more responsibilities, doing workshops with them, doing life skills lessons with them. And I just found that this is something that was really in my heart and part of my purpose. And so I eventually did my PGCE. So I've been an English teacher for the last 14 years.
What subject do you teach and what age group do you teach?
So I'm secondary school, so year 7 to 6th form. So that's 11 to until 17, 18. I don't do so much 6th form now. So Key Stage 3, Key Stage 4, trained in English, media and drama. English is my passion.
Well, I've got a child who's at secondary school at the moment. And what I found disheartening, he's actually reading Catcher in the Rye.
Catcher in the Rye, yeah.
Which is exactly the same textbook that I read when I was at school, way back in the mid-1980s. Has much changed in terms of diversity and the kind of books that they read at Key Stage 3 and 4?
It depends where you are. The school I'm at is fantastic. In fact, I was saying this the other day, it's the best school I've been in terms of diversity. Every month, every term, there is something different. So we look at Cane Warriors by Alex Wheatle. There's a whole board that is dedicated to diverse authors. We've got a whole scheme on diverse authors. So you've got poems, you've got prose, you've got literature. So it's not just the bog standard. Like when I went to school, the only time I'd read anything slightly diverse was Alice Walker or The Colour Purple or Roll of Thunder, Hear My Cry. Very much African American, but nothing that's Black British based. So I still couldn't see myself, and it was very much based on negativity and oppression and suppression. And you start to associate Blackness with pain and oppression. Whereas now working in this school, it's because most of the children there are from diverse backgrounds, they can relate to it. I used to teach poetry from different cultures, which has actually been taken off the GCSE syllabus now. I'm going to be honest, I do supply teaching now, so I'm not full-time in English, but I can see how it's changed. I think Key Stage 3 is very, very diverse, depending what school you go to. But when you get to Key Stage 4, I've got to say it's very bland. Still white, middle class, quite bland. I think it needs to be a lot more diverse.
No, it's not engaging, is it? And you want to hook those young people in it so that they are able to relate to the text and therefore have fuller answers when they're answering questions at GCSE and at A-level as well. So it's almost like they don't expect our young people to be at that level. So we might as well just keep things how it is and not challenge the status quo. But thank you for sharing your experiences of teaching. It's been difficult to put together questions for this interview because what haven't you done, Danny? Your career has been so diverse. A couple of years ago, I saw a play called Over the Garden Hedge. What was your involvement in that? I think our mutual friend is Paulette Harris German, but I'm sure you had a part to play behind the scenes in putting that production together.
I was just doing that. I was a producer on that. So that was helping with the crew, getting them together, sorting the flyers out. So anything creative I love.
Have you done anything else like that other than Over the Garden Hedge?
No, I mean, I think when I went to uni, my love writing and creativity is my thing. So when I was 17, 18, this is the second college I went to. I really, really had a good opportunity where outside facilitation came in and we were able to produce a play. So it was an opportunity where I wrote, stage managed and directed a play. It was a comedy sketch. And actually Richard Blackwood and Junior Ashray were the guests. Junior Ashray came to all the rehearsals on time. Richard did his own little skit there, and I'd written in their part. So it was really exciting for me, and it kept me in college. I got excluded soon after that, but absence. But I absolutely loved it. It was my first experience of seeing something I'd written come to life on stage. So it's always been something that I'm interested in, definitely. And I'm used to being more behind the scenes.
I didn't want to come on this call and not had the opportunity to at least read part of Mr. Wrong. I haven't finished it yet, but I've just finished Ange and Eric, their story, and I'm really thoroughly enjoying it. What I didn't realise was that it was an anthology. So tell me how the anthology came about and how do you get people to take part in it?
Mr. Wrong is a collection of stories written by women across the world who've encountered this infamous Mr. Wrong. But more than that, it's a place to self-discover. So the first half of it is stories written by women. There's success stories in there too. And Pam, I would have come to you if I'd known you before. So there's success stories in there as well, stories from men. And the second half of the book looks at the power of forgiveness, the power of intention setting, the power of understanding our thought patterns, being in charge of our choices. So it's not about blame. It's not about blaming men. It's about looking at ourselves and our choices and decisions. How I got the people was I set up a blog, and this all happened in 2012. And this is something I would never have done. I would never have put myself out in the forefront like that. Having my picture on a blog and putting my hand up and saying, hey guys, I have had a decade of dating disasters. Please tell me, women, am I alone? I can't be alone. And then I came up with, it's very tongue-in-cheek, different characters for Mr. Wrong, like Mr. Loose-Eye, the guys who are always looking around, 360 degrees, Mr. Dreamer, the one who kind of comes in, sweeps you off your feet, and then after 3 months, they've just got nowhere to go and they can't keep it up, so they disappear. So I was saying, ladies, have you met these guys? You must have met them. on this blog. And I gave them my email address and please send in your stories. I had women from all over the world, Canada, Australia, the UK, Europe, Jamaica, Kenya, even, sending in stories of things they've experienced. And I thought, wow, this is much bigger than I thought it was. This could actually really be a book, because I think as women, we're taught to be ashamed of bad decisions or relationships that go wrong, and we can feel like failures. But if we just air it, without blame or shaming anyone, if we just say, look, this is what happened to me. Okay, I can understand that. I recognize that. This is the same thing. What could we do differently? How can we learn? Because I think if you keep on meeting the same sort of person, the same situation, the same sort of instance, the same kind of relationship, then we've got to start looking within and looking at what belief systems we have that keep creating that. And I just found it really interesting putting these stories together. Some are tongue-in-cheek dating disasters, as you know, but then there's some stories of overcoming, some serious abuse. And, I take my hats off to every single person who contributed to that book as well, and men as well who spoke about their experiences.
Oh, no, it's very well done. I like that you pose questions that people can take time to answer. And there is space in the book for people to write down what their answers are and what their viewpoints are, and then perhaps look up what the answers might be, later on in the book. So I'm quite enjoying it. I'm, very impressed with, how the anthology was put together. The next question I have is about, when did you start Conscious Dreams Publishing?
My publishing company, and it was never meant to be a publishing company for others. My love is writing, and in fact the first book that I thought I would publish I finished in 2011, but actually realized I hadn't. I've only just finished it now in 2021. Was a children's fantasy book. That's my baby, that's my love. But I found myself writing Mr. Wrong because a friend said, look, if you meet one more, you've got to write a book. And I said, okay, I've met one more, so I had to write the book. So I started off by trying to find an agent, trying to go the traditional route, which proved very difficult. And I realized, wow, I've got all these women and men to share their stories. I have to honor them. So I cannot allow someone else's rejection to be the end of my story. So I've got to create my own way. I've got to create my own table. As I researched, setting up a publishing company, how to publish, found the right editors, typesetters, cover design, learned about distribution, got obsessed with learning about, the whole publishing process. Set up Conscious Dreams Publishing, published thing myself, and I did all right. I got onto a few bestseller lists. I beat Steve Harvey, Think Like a Man, Act Like a Lady. Joy of Sex is another one that I beat. And I was in the love and relationships category for a while, which was really surprising. And then I started getting interviews in the Daily Mail. It's not my favourite paper, but, it was good coverage. The Daily Mail, The Voice, Bang Radio, and it just went from there, really. And I thought, wow, there's something in this. And I just kept getting, at first, women of colour, or Black women mainly, who had amazing stories, overcome, extraordinary things, everyday women overcoming extraordinary things, saying, can you help me? And so I was helping them as a labour of love because I wanted to help them. And then I saw that they were doing really well. And I thought, oh God, I should have charged.
Oh, wow.
But then I thought, you know what? Actually, there's something in this. This is showing me there's so many people who want to publish books, who have amazing stories, who can really inspire and empower other people, but aren't being heard for whatever reason. They maybe don't have the knowledge of how to publish, or maybe they just are getting rejected by traditional publishers. So let me set this up and do this professionally. And I've been doing it for 6 years.
It feels like you've been around forever. Certainly, in my journey as an author, you were there before me, you're there now. And how many books would you estimate that you've published altogether?
We're coming up to 140. It just seems weird when you're asking me, setting it up. It was never in the plan. I'd never thought about it. It's because I wanted to help people. And then ever since then, I've just had streams of people wanting to publish books. And it just goes to show that we all have stories, we all have something to share. And sometimes we're not heard because we don't know how to do it.
Thank you for taking the time to explain what your traditional publishing journey was like and why you then independently published Mr. Wrong, and now that's turned into Conscious Dreams Publishing, and over 140 books. It's just so impressive, Danny. So, well done on all of that. How did you fare during lockdown 2020?
So many different things. It was a very unique time. Learned a lot about myself. And I think if any of us have come out of lockdown worse than we were before, then we probably need to go back into lockdown. Lockdown for me was I could see it coming. So I obviously got Conscious Dreams Publishing. I also teach. I was working 3 days a week at the school. And then just before lockdown, before we knew any of this was going to happen, I said, you know what, I feel like I'm being sucked into teaching again. Can I just go back to day-to-day supply? So I didn't have that contract. I also did financial education workshops in schools. And then when this all started to happen, I knew the inevitable. I could see it before it came. And then all of my workshops were being cancelled one by one. I was getting emails, cancelled. And then I lost 2 jobs in one day. So the teaching job, because we had to close down the school. And so there was no furlough, nothing in place at all. And the financial education jobs, which are, 6 months worth of work. So there was nothing except for me and Conscious Dreams Publishing. I live by myself. I've got rent, I've got mortgage to pay, part by part rent. I've got, big overhead. And so for a long period of time, I think people who are self-employed really fell through the gaps because I wasn't entitled to furlough until a lot later. They did sort something out for us, but it was a good 4 or 5 months of being left. So I just had to make my business work. Didn't have a choice. And at that time, when you kind of have nothing in you, there's this uncertainty of how am I going to sustain myself? I'm not going to die. I am going to survive. If it means having to cancel rent or if it means having to do a mortgage freeze, what's going to happen? Am I going to be evicted? No, I'm not. I just have to breathe through it and keep going. So I also had workshops that I'd planned. We do events as well. So that obviously was cancelled. I had a big gig at the London Book Fair. That was cancelled. And so it's just I had to learn how to use Zoom. I'd never used it before. So I had to use Zoom to do my online workshops that I'd already got planned. I just had to make my business work. And luckily, I was blessed that so many people had more time and wanted to write books. So my business did thrive. And I'm so grateful for that. I wrote a book called Lockdown Life.
That was born out of you being, us all being in lockdown, but you took it one further, Danny, by writing your book. Got 2 copies here. So thank you for gifting us with those copies. They're going to make fantastic competition prizes. So tell us why you wrote Lockdown Life.
I wrote Lockdown Life because I had more time. My life was, rushing from this job. And when I finish that job, I'm coming home and working my business and I'm going over there and that all stopped. So I thought, oh, wow, I've got a headache now. I can actually close my laptop and stop. I don't have to keep going because I'm not doing anything tomorrow apart from being here. That was a blessing. And once I kind of started to give more time to myself, I was able to write my own book. I thought, God, I haven't written my own book for about 4 years. I've helped everyone else publish books. That's my first love. And so I was just looking at this time, and I was single at the time. I was living at home by myself. And the experience was, I think, very different. And I thought, I wonder how other people are finding this. And there's so many different types of people. Are we represented? You've got the lockdown extra who's, an extrovert. Oh my gosh, how am I going to cope with not going out? I mean, I personally loved it. I think I'm a secret introvert. I feel pressured sometimes to go out. When things get cancelled, I'm like, yes, I can stay at home with my onesie. And I learned that about myself. And I thought, why don't I capture this unique snapshot of time as a remembrance for us, because this will never, ever happen again, I hope. And so the first section is about the different lockdown characters, like the lockdown extro, the lockdown intro. You've got the lockdown teacher, doing sessions online. So it's quite tongue-in-cheek. The second part is about the different lockdown activities. So how going to the shops became a big thing, or, going for a walk in nature, or lockdown snacking, own up, And then the third section is more reflective. It's about lockdown lessons. How can we learn and grow? And I just think, as I said, it'll be a travesty if any of us come out of here and not feel like they've learned anything. Like what was not interesting, but one of the things I put in life lessons, what can we learn from this time, was about self-reflection, the importance of community, not just thinking of self, acting as a community, thinking about other people, and spending time with loved ones, appreciating people that we love. And I never would have thought. So my book came out in September, and a month later, I lost my own dad. Wasn't able to be there for his birthday. He was absolutely fine on his birthday on the 28th of September. And then by the 20th of October, it just passed away very suddenly. And so it's almost like everything that I'd written in my book came true in a sense, because I spoke a lot about the losing loved ones and treasuring loved ones. And I think that is the biggest and most important thing any of us can have, because we don't live in the world by ourselves. Care about the people that we live around that love us.
Absolutely, and can certainly relate, because I think the time between losing my mum and you losing your dad was about 6 weeks, something like that. So your
Yeah.
whole world can change, just at the moment, and how important it is to value people while they are here as well. So
Yeah.
thank you for sharing that. But what I liked about Lockdown Life, which I'm going to ask you to read a little bit, if you don't mind, what I loved about Lockdown Life was that you got the opportunity to turn the book into an audio book. And what was that experience like?
I've always wanted to do an audiobook, but I think there's something about, because I don't know the technicalities behind it, I've just had a massive big brain freeze about it. So it's always been something I've wanted to do, but thought it was too hard. But I also knew that I wanted this to be a service to roll out to other authors, because, not everybody likes reading. It's true. They might love stories, and a way to get them involved, especially young people, is to create audiobook. Apparently, I don't have the figures on me, but the level of young people, especially boys, who listen to audiobooks over lockdown was skyrocketed. And this has been a way to actually engage them in. So it's not a long book. It's 97 pages. It's a humorous book. And so sometimes you can read it, but you need to hear the expression. So I thought, I really want to turn this into an audiobook. And so the book came out a year later, September 2021. Went to a studio. There's lots of different technical things. So find yourself a good studio engineer who knows the different specifications to creating the right formats and files. And I read the book. Now, when I say I read the book, it's not as simple as sitting down and reading the book. There's bits you have to do again. And one thing I will say is, when you write your book, another thing I've learned is, I think it's a really good skill, really good tool to actually read over your book out loud. Because when I was reading my book out loud, I could hear how the rhythm of the words and the sound of things go, and actually change things around after I read it out loud. Just small minor things. But yeah, so the audiobook came out in September, and I think it's a really powerful way to get your story out there as well. So it's not just in one format.
Do you want to read from your book now?
I can. So I committed a section from the first section, which is lockdown characters, lockdown personalities. So this is the lockdown roadman. Women, just when you thought it was safe, just when you thought it was okay to walk down the street without being accosted by what we affectionately call the roadman, we realised just how wrong we were. If anything, one thing we should all have learnt during this time was how to be mindful of each other's space. Show a little patience and slow down. Well, space, patience, and slow down aren't in lockdown roadman's vocabulary. In fact, if anything, they're simply speeding up. Ladies, you know the roadman I'm talking about, and if you don't, you're lucky. He's the one that stands on the street corners or outside betting shops and newsagents, waiting to find the exact moment to screech any of the following at you. Pretty gal, I like your eyes, beautiful. Any variation of, where your man? These include, why you have no man? You have man? Pretty thing like you have no man? Or if you look anything like me, you'll get personalized lyrics, and I hate this, such as Browning, which then progresses to big batty girl. So no. Somehow, Lockdown Roadman's chirpsing game doesn't seem to have been hampered by lockdown, unfortunately. And I'm starting to wonder whether they're listed as essential workers, and somehow we missed that on the memo. Now, what I've surmised after studying their habits is that although the frequency of their lyrics may have decreased as there are fewer sensible people outside, the intensity has increased. It's almost like a panic desperation to get a lockdown gal being his word, not mine, as soon as possible. With this desperation, the laughter lines around his eyes appear friendlier, and the lyrics have a certain softness to them. Hey, beautiful, sweet girl, sound lighter and leave a softer fragrance wafting in the air. However, the spell is quickly broken when he comes swaggering towards you for your number, breaking all manner of social distancing rules. This leaves women running for their lives, leaving Lockdown Roadman to wait patiently until his next victim walks out to buy some essential tampons. So why are the lyrics softer and desperation levels intensified at this time? Well, simply because the Lockdown Roadman spends most of his time outside. He hasn't yet made his house a home. He can't cook, won't cook, misses his grandma's cooking, and is so desperately willing to fast track his single status to lockdown so that he can be off the streets, be taken care of, and fed full free meals a day. Don't be fooled, ladies. We're not lockdown gals. How to spot a lockdown roadman. Key phrases: sweet gal, hey gal, yes gal. Demeanor: needs to make moves quick as he doesn't know where his next meal is coming from.
Lovely, lovely. Bravo, bravo, Danny. Love it. And I have to say that Lockdown Roadman is one of my favourite characters in the book. So, what's next, Danny? You've done publishing, you've published 2 books, been the producer of a play, you're teaching, you're publishing other people. What are the other projects that you have coming up for 2022?
Other projects. I've kind of gone back to my, heart, which is before I set this up, I wrote a children's fantasy novel, which I'm very proud of, and I'm very it's a huge part of me. So I did the first draft, when I finished it in 2011, when I thought it was finished, I revisited it a few years ago and completed the first draft. I had it looked at. I applied for a manuscript assessment by a company called Jericho Writers, who are formidable. They match you with agents. You can get your manuscript assessed. There's so many things you can do. They can help you with agent submission packs. So I had it read by one of their editors, and the feedback was very good. And I finished the second draft. I've taken on board all of her points. I finished the second draft. All I need to do is to write a query letter, which I've done, but it needs fine tuning. And I'd hate for this to be the one thing that holds me back, because I've written literally 50,000 words, no problem. All I need to do is to get this query letter in ship shape so I can start applying for agents. So that is my top secret or not so secret thing that I'm working on now. I really want to focus on, the things that I love. But I love helping other people publish books. In a way, I've forgotten my own writing career a little bit. So that's something that's really important to me. So that's something I'll be focusing on this year. So let's see.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah, everything crossed for you. Fingers crossed for you, Danny, that you get through with that. But I am surprised to hear that you're going down a traditional publishing route with your fantasy novel. Why is that?
Well, I can always self-publish. I always say to authors, look, Conscious Dreams Publishing is a stepping stone. If you had a great deal with, let's say, Random House, absolutely go for it. There's limitations for everything. Self-publishing, first of all, is very difficult. It's difficult to get into bookstores. It's more than possible to. I've had my books in Waterstones, Dulwich Books, lots of different bookstores, W.H. Smith's. But I just feel with this particular book, children's fantasy, who wouldn't want to go? Who wouldn't want to at least try? I've written something that I'm immensely proud of. The children's market, in terms of getting the marketing and the coverage that a traditional publishing can give you, I would be really letting myself down and didn't try. Books like Lockdown Life, the other books, they suit the path that I went down with the Conscious Dreams Publishing. But with this book, I just feel it can be, the dreams that I have for it, I don't want to speak them out, but I just think this is something that I'd really like to at least say, look, I've tried and I did it. And if I'm rejected, I'm rejected. I can publish through Conscious Dreams Publishing, no problem. But I just feel like this is something that I should definitely go for.
Yep, and I mean, 100% agree with you. Sometimes the dreams we have for our books are bigger than ourselves, and it deserves a wider audience than we can do in our capacity. And one of the advantages of having a traditional publisher is that they're already connected to bookshops and booksellers worldwide. So why wouldn't you give your book the opportunity to shine in that arena? So, I absolutely make you right. Will you be taking part in the London Book Fair this year?
I will be. So originally I was down to do it. We had a stall there for 2020, had all the books. If you come to my house, you'll see I've got a stack of books I'd sent to be on our stall, which got sent back to me. Everything crossed. It's going to go ahead in June. So I've got a stall there and I shall be there with some of our authors' books. I'm very excited about it.
Wonderful. And as a podcaster, I've been given a press pass, so I hope to see you there as well. So it'd be good to meet you again. So I think we've only met a couple of times. So it'd be good to see you then and to see your books and how they look like and how they shine in that arena as well. So that would be really good. Any other projects that you can tell us about? Any new books that we need to be keeping a lookout for that are coming our way this spring?
Any new books? So we have got a full cohort till the end of March. We've got a book written by an 9-year-old, I think she is. Actually, we had a book called My Afros. Our youngest author's 7 years old, published her book in December. We now have a 9-year-old publishing a book in, I think it's going to be March, coming out. We have got about 10 books. I don't want to list them all because none are more important than the other. And so we've got a cohort of authors coming out sort of February, March. Really excited about that. I'm going to be taking on less clients. I'm going to be doing fewer one-to-ones, and the plan is to start doing group coaching, so helping people to write their book first of all, then also taking people through the publishing process, and then helping people who've already published their book and maybe need a bit of help with marketing. So less books, because my bookshelves are getting so full up. If I carry on, I'm going to have like 1,000 books. I don't know where to put them. So more group coaching is my plan.
If people want to get hold of you because they're interested in publishing a book or they're interested in purchasing the books that you have published, how can people get hold of you?
Well, my website is www.consciousdreamspublishing. And if you go over to the contact form, you can tell us more about your project. And then I'll send you an email to book a free 30-minute consultation. We're on Facebook and Instagram under Conscious Dreams Publishing. And all of our information's are there in regards to emails and numbers and all of that.
That's fantastic, Danny. I can't believe we've come to the end of our interview already. Thank you so much for joining me. I know it's your free time, and I really appreciate that you have managed to slot me in. So thank you very much. I wish you all the best with your endeavours. I can't wait to read this fantasy book that you have coming out. So please get in contact with me and let me know when that's likely to come out so that I can get my copy.
Thank you so much, Pam. I've really enjoyed this and loving your podcast as well.
Thank you very much. Thank you for listening to the final episode of the Author to Author podcast. It is competition time. How many books has Daniella Blechner published? To win a copy of her book, Lockdown Life, contact me on Instagram at Loving the Brothers Author, or on Facebook on my author page, Loving the Brothers by Pamela R Haynes, with the correct answer for your opportunity to win a copy of her book. The competition closes this Friday at 5 p.m. British Summer Time. Thank you so much for listening. Bye for now.
Please join Pamela R Haynes for another Author to Author podcast coming soon.